This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of the Killenly Town Council, and I am calling this regular Town Council meeting to order. It is currently 7:01 p.m. on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. We'll move on. The next item on the agenda is prayer. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us here safely. We thank you for the position you've put us in, and we ask you for your guidance and your wisdom in all the decisions we make this evening, Lord, so we can make the best decisions for our town. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. Can I get a motion to adopt the meetings from the regular town council meeting, November 14th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion? Corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, there was an additional proclamation that I didn't have an opportunity to have added to the agenda. You have it before you, and it is recognizing December 16th as celebrating Visa Across America time. I would just ask that the council add this to their agenda.
I will entertain a motion to add an item 6. We'll do 6B, Part 2, for a proclamation acknowledging December 16th, 2023 as celebrating Wreaths Across America.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made by Mr. Grandalski, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add an item to the agenda. Call it item 15A, discussion and action on the termination of all agreements, contracts, et cetera, with regard to the NTE power plant project.
Second.
We've got a motion made by Mr. Grandalski, seconded by Mr., and I apologize how I mispronounced your name, Gambatista. Discussion?
Ed, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, in the paper the other day, there was an article about DEP is looking to cancel out the discharge permit. So I think it would be, I don't know if we have to, but I think it'd be in our best interest. I don't want this biting us sometime later on, because there's still some time for all our agreements. They're still in effect. So if we can completely make it go away, I would be definitely more comfortable. Because there is, the deciding council is still with them. I don't know if they're working on terminating the agreements and whatnot, but it's, someone else could buy their project, or that's what I'm looking at. I don't want someone coming in the back door and opening this up again.
I would like to just add one thing. With it being a legally binding contract, is this something you feel we should have the town attorney here for?
Yeah, then my recommendation would be that the town attorney review that before the town council take action on that, so I can bring that to the town attorney and bring back his feedback for your January meeting as to how the council may proceed potentially with entertaining this topic.
I myself haven't reviewed those contracts in a couple years.
Correct.
But if my memory serves me correctly, the contracts also transferred on to any company that assumed NTE. So before we'd be able to terminate, we would just have to make sure no other company had acquired or assumed NTE.
Right, which my understanding is that they have transferred, NTE doesn't exactly exist anymore, but it would be with whatever the new entity is. And again, it's been a little bit of time since I've actually reviewed the contract, so I would need to make sure that we are abiding by any termination clauses or exit clauses that we have within that. And so I would recommend that we have the town attorney review that, and I would draft any appropriate resolution in accordance to how that would function.
Thank you.
So then we can have this as an agenda item for, that's, you know, I just wanna, I started reading some of this and I want them gone. It just, it may be overboard, but I'd like to completely kill it.
We do have a motion and a second on the table. Do you want
I
to
will,
add it to this?
I'll rescind my motion.
And he would have to rescind his second. Okay. So both motions have been rescinded? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items that anyone wants to add to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item up is item 6A, proclamation recognizing December 2023 as Driving Impairment Awareness Month. Whereas approximately 1/3 of all fatal traffic accidents in the United States in 2023 involved impaired drivers, the use of alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs can affect the brain by impairing motor skills, reaction time, and judgment, which are all critical while driving. And whereas impaired driving is a public health concern because it not only puts the driver at risk but also endangers the lives and safety of passengers and others sharing the road. And whereas according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, twice as many impaired and fatal accidents occur on the weekend. And whereas, through the exercise of good judgment, personal responsibility, and a commitment to never drive while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, every community member can play a role in the fight against impaired driving due to drunk, drugged, and distracted driving. And whereas the year-end holiday season is traditionally a time for social gatherings which include alcohol, whether you are driving, riding, or hosting a celebration, celebrate with a plan, designate a driver, utilize public transportation, stay the night, never drink and drive. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recognizes this is one of the deadliest and most dangerous times on American roadways due to an increase in impaired driving. We must all recognize the danger impaired driving can pose for drivers, passengers, and all others sharing the road, and encourage our communities to identify, develop, and promote solutions to this critical issue that takes away thousands of lives every year. And now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that the month of December is hereby recognized as Driving Impairment Awareness Month, and encourage our citizens to celebrate with a plan and pledge to increase awareness for the dangers of impaired driving. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 12th day of December 2023.
Proclamation supporting Israel. Whereas the State of Israel is a long-standing ally to the United States and serves as a national homeland of the Jewish people, representing their history, religion, culture, and Jewish identity. And whereas on Saturday, October 7th, 2023, the militant terrorist organization Hamas launched attacks from Gaza against Israeli border communities that, as of December 5th, 2023, have resulted in 1,400 deaths, including women and children, have injured thousands more, and taken at least 240 people hostage, and have destroyed homes and businesses. And whereas at least 35 United States citizens have died as a result of these attacks in Israel, and it has been confirmed that the United States citizens are among those taken hostage by Hamas. And whereas alongside many other municipalities and states across the nation and countries throughout the world, the Town Council of the Town of Killenly declares that there is no place for terrorist violence in our world, and condemns the violent actions of Hamas perpetrated against Israel and its citizens. And whereas the Town Council of the Town of Killenly stands in support of Israel and the Jewish community and honors the lives lost in the recent deadly attacks by Hamas militants. And now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killenly that we condemn the unprovoked and barbaric attacks by Hamas against Israel, its citizens, and Americans. We express our support for Israel, and we honor the lives lost in the recent deadly attacks by Hamas militants. The council encourages residents to firmly reject all forms of hate and show support for our Jewish community members during these difficult times. Killenly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killenly, Connecticut, this 12th day of December 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. Ms. Murphy.
Proclamation honoring Teacher of the Year for Killingly Public Schools.
I'm sorry, you had added the
Oh,
Reese.
yeah, the Reese.
I'm sorry.
I apologize,
I'm sorry,
Michelle.
not yet.
Proclamation acknowledging December 16th, 2023 as celebrating Wreaths Across America National Day. Whereas the town of Killingly recognizes the importance of honoring and remembering our nation's veterans, and whereas Wreaths Across America, a nonprofit organization, annually coordinates wreath-laying ceremonies at veterans' graves across the United States, and through their mission remembers the fallen veterans and honors those who serve and teach our children the value of freedom. And whereas on December 16, 2023, Wreaths Across America will unite communities, volunteers, and organizations in a solemn tribute to veterans by adorning their resting places with wreaths. And whereas the act of placing wreaths on veterans' graves symbolizes our gratitude for their service, commitment, and sacrifice for our nation. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killingly that December 16th, 2023 be recognized as a day to celebrate Wreaths Across America, and encourages all residents to participate in honoring our veterans through wreath-laying ceremonies and expressions of gratitude. Killingly Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killingly, Connecticut, this 12th day of December 2023. And thank you for recognizing this National Day. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. George. And Ms. Murphy.
Proclamation honoring David DeRocha, Killingly Public Schools 2023-2024 Teacher of the Year. Whereas David DeRocha earned his Master's of Art in Education in 2010 from the University of St. Joseph's and has served as a dedicated teacher at Killingly Intermediate School since 2016. And whereas David traveled abroad to study and work, including a military deployment, he uses his experiences and broad knowledge of international affairs to create authentic lesson plans and assessments to help students open their windows to the world. And whereas David continually emphasizes current events knowledge with selected readings from current periodicals, simulations, and new lesson plans designated to link classroom content to the wider world, and whereas David is committed to providing students an opportunity to learn through field trips, leading students to local, regional, and international destinations, David is a supportive and genuine educator who takes the time to listen to students in need and elaborate with students when they are successful. David also ran the Ski Club and Dungeons and Dragons. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killingly that David DeRocha be publicly recognized for his exemplary service and the well-earned distinction and respect he receives from his students and peers as the 2023-2024 Killingly Public School Teacher of the Year. And be it further proclaimed that he be commended for his devotion to his students, their families, their school, and their community. Presented this 30th day of November 2023 by the Killingly Brooklyn Rotary.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
And if you want to stand and be acknowledged, and if you wanted to say anything, David, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the council. It is a privilege to serve in Killingly. Additionally, it's important to remember that I'm just one member of a pretty large team of individuals, and so part of the selection process for a Teacher of the Year is that you are representing all the teachers in the district, and there are many excellent individuals that I would be unable to do my job as effectively I promise you, no one ever sees a Teacher of the Year award coming, because if there's one group who make you feel like you're not Teacher of the Year or even Teacher of the Day, it is a crew of children. And I'm pretty sure they do that to their parents every day. But I feel privileged to work with the children here. Almost every colleague that I know who has moved to another district, when I speak to them, there's always a little bit of regret in their voice, because they're like, I don't know how good that I didn't know how good that I had it in Killingly. So it is a true privilege to be able to work and teach and be allowed to spend time with your children. And I look forward to continuing to play my role in helping them to not just accept, but embrace a role in our society as they become young adults, and parents themselves. I yield my time.
Thank you very much. Next up is a proclamation honoring Lisa Aniello, Harvard H. Ellis Technical High School 2023 to 2024 Teacher of the Year. Whereas Lisa Aniello is currently serving her 9th year as the hairdressing and barbering teacher at Harvard H. Ellis Technical High School, Lisa attended the Creative School of Hairdressing in Manchester, Connecticut, and has worked in multiple avenues of hairdressing over the years, including owning her own hair salon from 1990 to 2000. And whereas Lisa began her teaching career later in life at the age of 50 years old, she worked various cooking jobs to put herself through school to obtain her teaching certificate and raised 2 sons at the same time. Lisa exemplifies the definition of determination no matter where you are in life, and shares that drive and determination with her students. And whereas Lisa has developed a special connection with her students that she thought would never be possible because she started her teaching career later in life, her students express their gratitude daily and are inspired by the example she sets every day as a teacher at Harvard H. Ellis Technical High School. And whereas Lisa is successful in teaching her students to have respect for one another and as well as themselves inside and outside of the classroom, she emphasizes the importance of great work habits, good ethics, and to simply help make the world a better place with every student she teaches. And now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killingly that Lisa Aniello be publicly recognized for her exemplary service and the well-earned distinction and respect she deserves from her students and peers as the 2023-2024 Harvard H. Ellis Technical High School Teacher of the Year. And be it further proclaimed that she be commended for her devotion to her students, their families, their school, and their community. This was presented the 30th day of November 2023 by the Killingly Brooklyn Rotary. Ms. George.
This is a proclamation honoring Blythe Hanley, St. James Parochial School 2023-2024 Teacher of the Year. Whereas Blythe Hanley is currently serving her 9th year as a science and mathematics educator at St. James Parochial School, she successfully manages 3 sections of science and 4 sections of math, as well as teaching 2 sections of math to 8th grade students simultaneously. And whereas Blythe is the advisor for student council and coaches the cross-country team. She is known as a great worker and mentor among the staff and students at St. James Parochial School. She brings a calm presence to the classroom, which creates an environment where her students feel safe to ask questions, and whereas Blythe is known for her creative ideas and is always willing to lend a helping hand. Parents and administration alike have recognized Blythe's willingness to identify each of her students' strengths and challenges and will work with them to grow their skills as they prepare for high school. And whereas Blythe lives her life in line with the gospel values, serving her students, her school, the parish, and the community. She models the school's mission in her gospel values, gladly performing her duties with patience, kindness, flexibility, dedication, and compassion. And now therefore be it proclaimed the Town Council of the Town of Killingly that Blythe Hanley be publicly recognized for exemplary service and the well-earned distinction and respect she receives from her students and peers as the 2023-2024 St. James Parochial School Teacher of the Year, and be it further proclaimed that she be commended for her devotion to her students, their families, their school, and their community. This was presented the 30th day of November 2023 by the Killingly Brooklyn Rotary.
Thank you. Next item up, 6F, is a presentation of a plaque honoring outgoing council member Ray Wood. This is an appreciation for his dedication and distinguished service to the town of Killingly as a member of the Killingly Town Council. His term was from December 2019 through November 2023, and this is presented the 12th day of December 2023 by the Killingly Town Council. I would definitely like to add, it was an honor to serve alongside Ray Wood. Very knowledgeable. His knowledge of history and government was unbelievable. Very knowledgeable on a lot of things, not just that as well. Always had stuff to add to meetings. Had me looking at things differently than I had before I heard what he had to say a lot of times as well. And it was definitely an honor, and I know I speak on behalf of the other council members that served with you. You will be missed. And thank you for your service.
I was gonna say, Ray's
I
not
guess,
gonna
I guess one
say
more
anything.
time in front of the mic, why not? First off, I want to say congratulations to all of you on the election. Tony, congratulations to you. If you were told that it's only 2 meetings, you were lied to. It was a trap. He hasn't gotten the budget. Yeah, fair enough. I will say that this is a great group to work with. They're very knowledgeable. Any question you have, don't be afraid to ask. There is a lot to learn over the next 4 years. It took me 4 years to finally feel comfortable. But over the last few weeks, I've been thinking about some things there, and I know Jason, you mentioned they're very knowledgeable. Google's a great thing. But there was one quote from George Washington that keeps running through my mind. He said that every post is honorable in which a man can serve his country. As I thought of that quote, I think about every time that I led the prayer. I reminded us that we are servants first and foremost to the people. And that is something I hope that you continue on in being reminded that you serve the people here. And it's honorable for every single one of us, whether we're Teacher of the Year, whether we've served on the council, whether you're at the Friends of Assisi, whatever you do, serving your community is a very honorable thing. And it's funny because Washington, when he said this in a letter to Benedict Arnold, of all people. Benedict Arnold actually complained about a lot of the posts that he had. And yet Washington reminded him that it's honorable to serve the people. Even in this month there, as I think of Christmas and the real meaning of Christmas, we have a God who came down from heaven to earth to serve people. And if the God of all creation can serve man, any single one of us can. And so I'm just proud of our town. I'm proud of all of you. I know that you'll do well. And I encourage every citizen to find some way, whether it's serving on a board or commission, serving in other various areas that they can, serve your community, serve one another. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wood. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 6G, presentation on the box culvert drainage study by Dave Capascione, our town engineer.
Good evening, all. Thank you
evening.
for that kind introduction. As you know, we've been looking at this project for several years. And we put together a very brief slide presentation, which kind of outlines some history on it, on what we've done to date as far as investigations and some minor corrective action for some of the worst areas that we've seen. It's kind of difficult to see from this slide, but we did manage to find some information in the Historical Society, quite by accident, I might add. This is a map from 1893 showing the location of Center Brook, which is actually quite accurate. So clearly, this is nothing new to the town of Killenly, and my hat's off to the people that built this, because it has held up quite well, and most of it is in decent condition. Okay, next slide, please, John. This next slide that we have before us also was discovered in the Historical Society, and it shows it in a little more detail from 1935. Again, starting at the 5 Mile River, in what is now the parking lot for the River Trail by Water Street, going up through the Greek Orthodox Church, across St. James right-of-way, Cottage Street, and then down to the railroad tracks. Next slide, please, Jen. And if anybody has any questions as I'm going, don't feel you have to wait till the end. This slide shows the 2 phases of the study that we have completed to date. The red line indicates the first phase that was done in '21 from the 5 Mile River to, I think the address is 99 School Street, if I remember correctly. Essentially right across from the parking lot to the courthouse, where another drainage system from the Killenly Community Center comes down the hill and ties into it. And the next phase from that part north up to Reynolds Street, we completed this year. Okay, next slide, please, John. This is just bless you. Just a map of the box culvert taking us up to the first phase, which shows the existing buildings and roads and the railroad that it goes under, and which, again, is remarkably accurate to the drawings from 1935 and 1893. It's just there was more things built on top of it now than there were at that time. Next slide, please, John. Now we'll start at the northern section of where the Phase 1 study ended. And again, this is 99 School Street, which again is right across from the courthouse parking lot on School Street. The drain line, there's a corrugated metal pipe that goes from basically the community center down the hill across the parking lot underneath School Street, dangerously close to the white, blue and red house, and between the garages at the back of this driveway. Next slide, please, John. This is looking at basically the same shot, but just from the opposite direction. This is taken in the municipal parking lot. If you can see on the other side of the fence, probably halfway across the garage, there's a manhole. That is where the corrugated metal pipe from School Street connects to the underground box culvert. At this point, that underground box culvert runs underneath the garage on the right-hand side. So the next photo, please, Jen. This is underneath the garage. Excuse me. You can see the corrugated metal pipe that comes in from School Street, which shows some cement poured around it, which I'm assuming is when they installed that pipe, they did a repair to the culvert, to the box culvert. And you can see where, again, at that intersection, there is some undermining and erosion that has taken place from the water. And you can see the voids under the rocks. And again, this is underneath the private property, which I might say we don't have any easements for any of this anywhere, which doesn't help us. But anyway, it needed to be addressed once we found this, because we didn't want any problems. Next slide, please,
A
John.
question while you're there. How's the condition of that corrugated pipe?
Not bad.
Because you say, we don't have easements, and are we gonna be expected to take the garage down, or what, what's?
Well, the corrugated metal pipe is between all the buildings. It's
Okay.
it's the stone box culvert that's not.
Okay,
But that corrugated metal pipe was installed when they did the courthouse parking lot, if I understand it correctly. So that seems to be in good shape. We have run a camera down that. There does not seem to be any holes or any problems with that so far. But it is corrugated metal, and as we know what happens to metal when you bury it underground. It doesn't last forever. These next photos show the repair that was done under the garage. You can see basically we've poured cement, filled the holes, the scour holes up underneath the voids. We parged up some of the holes in the stone voids in the walls. It's kind of just a progression of series, starting from the one on the left to the one on the right, where we ended up parging up all the voids. Next slide, please, John. Still in the same general area. This, you can see the walls, for the most part, are dry laid stone that are in decent shape. The cast-in-place concrete roof slabs, on the other hand, vary. You can see the cracks that are in them. Again, it will require some attention. I'm sorry? It varies. Probably 4 to 5 feet. In places, it's narrower. And you can stand up and walk in this, for the most part. It's probably, again, varies 4 to 5 feet. If you go through it, you can see there's, I don't know if they hit boulders they couldn't move, or if they hit ledge. But they basically followed whatever they could. If they could excavate it, they did. But again, the concrete slab, I don't know if there's rebar in this section or wire. I couldn't say. So if it does fail, it will fail quickly. It won't, give us any signs. It'll just collapse. It's basically like a rock. It would just crack and collapse. Okay, next slide, please, John. This is a little further, again, going towards Water Street. This is at 30 Furnace Street, which is the now town property at what I believe used to be the old foundry. Again, this is just some debris that's in the culvert that is restricting flow. There are a couple of pipes that come in here as well, one from Furnace Street, which is blocked, that we do need to open to allow better drainage for, it comes in from School Street, I'm sorry, not Furnace. That we do need to open up to allow for better drainage, which will facilitate the system to function better. But again, there's some debris there. Some of that looks like old curbstone. Some of it looks like a plastic collar for drainage pipe. I'm not sure how that got there. The curbstone, perhaps somebody did a repair at some point and it collapsed and fell in, but I don't believe that floated downstream. The plastic concrete collar on the right, I believe that could have floated downstream, but that granite curbstone, I think, has been there for a long time.
but a question on that. So what is the access where that granite curbstone is? I mean, how far from a manhole access to that is?
It's about 100 feet from the nearest manhole access.
Okay.
Which leads me to believe that at some point, somebody did a repair to this roof. If you look on the photo on the right, on the top, you can see something that's hanging down. That looks like old formwork for the concrete slab. So my guess is that they did someone did a repair at some point,
Yep.
and this ended up in the hole. I can't, I'm speculating entirely on
No,
this.
yeah,
but- But that's my guess. And again, you know, due to the obstructions, there is some scouring and undermining of the bottom, which is, you know, there's no stone or cement slab on this, which is shown a little clearer in the next slide. Again, this is essentially the same spot, but you can see the undulations in the floor in the channel bottom, as well as some scour holes, which are shown a little more clearly on the right side photo. And again, this is still in the parking lot, you know, basically starting to take a turn toward the Imperial Room at this point. Next slide, please, Jen. Oh, thank you. Again, more roof photos in the same general area. You know, again, this is basically in your travel portion. The photo on the right, you can see some cracking pretty close to the walls. Photo in the middle shows some alligator cracking and some spalling in the photo on the right. Again, this is all on the roof slab, which again, I think is something we are going to have to address in the not too distant future. Okay, next, thank you, Jen. Okay, this is under the Imperial Room. Again, you can see where it has been repaired at some point. This piece of metal spanning the walls, I'm guessing that's an old plow blade or a cutting edge from a payloader bucket, or just the bolt pattern indicates it had a previous life before it became support for the formwork. And again, some of the boards are still in existence, some are rotten, but clearly they poured on top of the boards. And again, it's held up for many years. So but it's just something that's nearing the end of its useful life, unfortunately. Next photo, please, John. Once you go underneath the Imperial Room, it kind of parallels the Providence and Worcester Railroad tracks. Is it still Providence and Worcester, or is it under new ownership? What is it?
Genesis in Wyoming, I believe now.
Genovese in Wyoming. This is a little concerning to me, just due to the iron staining on the concrete slabs. Almost leads me to believe there's something in these slabs on top of the stone walls. And if they're leaching like that, that's probably corroding. There could be a steel plate over this, because the railroad knows this exists. When I talked to them about, you know, making sure that they didn't have any issues in timing for trains for us to go underneath it, they were well aware this tunnel exists under their tracks. They didn't have a lot of information on it, but they were aware of it. So, again, you can see some crack in here that, again, it's deteriorating with time. Next photo, please, John. A little further down, again, some more serious cracking. I have no idea what that pipe used to do or does, or why it's there. But clearly it hasn't helped the integrity of this roof structure on this box culvert. This is as you go under the railroad tracks, as you approach to the actual tracks, go underneath them and past them. You can see they parged up the walls with cement. They poured cement on the bottom to stabilize it for erosion, and they put in steel I-beams to support it. So, again, it seems to be in good shape. I'm not saying the steel is the same thickness it was when it was installed, but it still seems to be structurally sound.
Has the railroad been in this, when you guys were doing this? They have not?
They have not.
So if you show them pictures, that's they know of its existence, but they don't know the condition and,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, but, okay. Next photos, please, John. And once you come out on the railroad tracks, it goes to a asphalt-coated corrugated metal squash pipe, which is in various degrees of decay. The orange lines and the rust areas indicate holes in the pipe. And again, again, this continues all the way from the railroad tracks. Fortunately, it goes in between houses and crosses Cottage Street and heads toward the parking lot of the Greek Orthodox Church. Next photo, please, John. And then once we get to the parking lot of the Greek Orthodox Church, we have a stone arch, which is, again, whoever built it did a good job. Unfortunately, everybody and their brother seems to have stuck a pipe in it somewhere. And if you look toward the end, I didn't include the photos of the very end, but you can see where it turns to a precast stone box culvert. Back at some point, I forget if it was in the 70s or what the plans say, the state did a project here, and they installed the precast concrete box culvert, at which point they sprayed the interior of the stone arch with shotcrete, which, again, I'm sure it held up for a while, but you can see it has deteriorated. Water is clearly undermining it. And, that also needs to be replaced before the whole box culvert gets to be undermined. Okay, next slide, please. This is some recommendations that came through from the Phase 1 report. The immediate action for, we corrected at least the top part for the scour between the stations 99 and 100. That was underneath the School Street garage. So we took care of that. The other immediate action talks about the concrete slabs on top of the box culvert in the municipal parking lot. And then they have the additional recommendations, for the rest of the box culvert, which essentially outline what we just discussed. Next slide, please, John. And then this year, we started off on the Phase 2. Essentially, we took off from where we left off on in the municipal parking lot by School Street. It goes under the next building, which I believe was the old Norwich Bulletin at one point in time. Goes underneath that, through the parking lot, across Center Street, which another box culvert ties into. Comes basically through here, underneath the law offices of Serentopolis and Serentopolis, across School Street, up in the driveway of the fire department. Then it goes north, parallel to the fire department, across Academy Street. Next slide, please, John. Yep, and then, again, it goes very close to 50 Academy Street, and then underneath the Westfield Avenue Congregational Church. Next slide, please, John. Or are you already there? No, you're there. Thank you. And again, this just gives them detail, and there is some notes on the plan that outline, some of the things that they found. Underneath the church, it's a smaller box culvert in varying degrees of structural integrity, I guess. And clearly, on the Reynolds Street portion, there was some problems with it that you will see as we proceed. Next slide, please, John. Okay, this is in the driveway from the fire department, coming off of School Street. This photo is looking towards School Street. And again, there was some serious undermining here and some scour holes about 2 feet deep underneath the box culvert. And we also did some repair there to correct that. Next slide, please. The photo on the left is standing at what was one of the deeper scour holes, looking upstream, I guess. So the fire department would be on the left as you're going up around that corner. The pipe you see comes in from a catch basin in the parking lot, and the photos in the middle and on the right are looking downstream back towards School Street. So again, we filled up all the voids and parched up the big voids in the stone walls.
And I just want to interject, so he prioritized this section of repair simply because of the fire department vehicle access. became aware of the level of scouring that was occurring and the undermining that was taking place. There was concern as to whether or not fire trucks would have a significant problem, or there would be a significant failure because of the potential of, consistent access by heavy vehicle. So that's why we prioritize this in quickly getting this repaired once we discovered the condition.
That is correct. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. And then our next major issue was on Reynolds Street. This is obviously standing on Reynolds Street, looking downstream towards the Congregational Church. Couple of things that are important to look at in this photo. One is the sag in the road for the catch basin. The other one is the sag in the sidewalk, and the paint mark, the little orange paint mark that you see on the sidewalk will be significant in a minute. Next slide, please. You can see the constriction. That's pretty much where that orange paint mark is. It appears that one of the cap rocks had cracked, hence the sag. And again, there's a bunch of rocks that you can see have fallen in and undermined in the area. So it's certainly was in need of repair. Next slide is a little closer view. It almost looks like they at some point in time, probably when they built it, they used wood beams to help support it, which are in surprisingly good shape for something that's been buried for so long. Yes, yeah. So again, we're lucky we didn't have more failures in this area just because of the condition of it. And of course, keep in mind that just pretty much at the end of this photograph is a retaining wall that drops down to the Westfield Congregational Church. So that probably had something to do with the degradation of this area of the box culvert just due to the change in elevation. Upstream from here, it's in not pretty good shape. It goes essentially under the sidewalk parallel to Davis Park and up along Main Street. Next photo, please, John. So this just a few slides to show you the repair that we were doing as part of the Reynolds Street project. At this point, we have already replaced the sewer line, but now we've got to get so we can uncover this. So this was the simplest way to get a machine down in the hole. Thank you, John. And again, the photo on the left, you can see the cap rocks are exposed, and you can see they're just dry laid. There's no cement holding the joints at all. They're just big flat rocks that were laid there. And the photo on the right shows the box culvert that goes underneath the church. And yeah, it's just two freestanding stone walls with large cap rocks laid on top, and it's held up for many years. Okay, next photo, please, John. This is looking upstream, just getting ready to start setting the box culvert. The round pipe that you see under that cap rock was put in when we ran the sewer line, because obviously we needed to go through the stone box culvert to install that. So this was just a temporary install so water could flow through it. It's filled with dirt now because we excavated what was around it, but that's how it was actively draining. Next slide, please. Again, just preparation for setting the box, compacting the base. Next slide, leveling the stone. And the slide after that shows setting the first box. And then the next slide after that, if I'm going too fast, let me know, but I don't want to take too much time on it. This shows our temporary drainage install for the storm that was coming over the weekend. This was done on Friday. At this point, they had already poured concrete at the end, tying the first box into the existing stone culvert that goes under the church. And today, the ADS pipe was removed, and they started to lay more sections of the box culvert to go across Reynolds Street. And with that, that brings me to the end of what I've put together. I have many more photographs. But I figured that was probably more than enough to give everybody the big picture. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions or comments, or,
And I will just add that, so clearly the stone box culvert on Reynolds Street, that, for Tony's sake and for others that are listening, that was funded through the ARP funding. That was one of the capital projects that the town council authorized through the ARP funding. So clearly it was a critical nature. We've been monitoring the sinking of that drainage system over there. And so it was definitely really at a critical point. So that project is, clearly still ongoing, has been within budget. But it has definitely been an interesting
yes.
process with that stone culvert. We're fortunate that, I think all of us, before we started this project, were concerned that we were gonna have to chase that pipe a bit further and potentially even underneath the building. We were fortunate that that section of the stone box culvert is still in reasonable condition, that the new box culvert can be connected to it. So, but again, as you see through all of the study, there's a number of other additional areas that we need to address, and that will be coming in various forms through the capital improvement plan when we go through the budgetary process. It may be considered through that budgetary process as whether or not the town wants to do another level of investment in managing some of the conditions that we have now discovered within this system at this point.
Mhm. That's correct.
So I guess you said they put the ADS pipe in, so we managed the 5 inches of rain, we just got.
Yeah, it flowed through the box culvert fine, no issues at all.
I'm thinking about that, and I said, oh my, when they were saying 2 to 4, well, I'm saying hopefully it's 2, and then I looked at the rain gauge, 5 plus, and I thought about that, and I didn't hear anything. I said, I guess they dodged a bullet, they did enough prep to make sure that didn't.
Well,
really
in all honesty, I have to give Gerald Fitzgerald, owner of PJF Construction, a lot of credit, because he was out here at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure that it was functioning.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a lot at stake, right.
He didn't want any more problems than we did. But again, he was very cognizant. He's a certified DOT bridge contractor, and he's familiar with the process and what can go wrong. So he didn't want any issues. We made sure everything was tightened up. He even worked over the weekend to button it up.
No, that's.
And again, he was out here at night in the rain to double check his work. So I
And
thank him for that.
Yeah, we've also been, clearly this has been, kind of a little bit of a protracted timeframe in working in Reynolds Street, from Connecticut Water doing their water main replacement, the town doing the sewer main replacement, now working on the box culvert, and ultimately there still needs to be the final connection of water and sewer out onto the Main Street portion. So it's kind of it's been a lot of a disruption, and we have, with the funeral home right there, as well as the church, who has, both entities have a fair amount of activity on an ongoing basis. I, want to give a lot of credit to Dave and his staff for making sure they communicate directly with those entities over there to make sure that they're aware of. And we've been, cognizant about, if one of them has an event, making sure equipment is out of the way, and that they're aware of closures. Like currently right now, we have that closure for the next week and a half. It's never an ideal time. There's always events for both of them. They recognize that, but I will say both entities have been very good to work with. They've been very accommodating. The church, especially with all the work that we've had to actually do, on the church property in order to gain access, they've been very accommodating. So, I do want to. It's been very good cooperation among all the entities in order to get this done. It's a pretty impactful project right there.
Mhm. I agree. It's certainly been a team effort all around.
So did we have any flooding on School Street, like prior, when we started the study a few years ago? We were just in its infancy, and I got a call from somebody, and the water was up to the steps of the courthouse. But I think since then, you've done some repairs downstream that,
We have done some minor improvements, and I hate to say this, but in the last several months, we haven't had any issues with water. Not to say that we won't in the future, because clearly, we have more work to do, but,
but I
I
think this
haven't
is
seen it
better than
before.
when this started. We were kind of having some discussions, and I think overall, the whole box culvert looks better and functioning than what we anticipated.
correct. There were a few culverts that were connected that we didn't know were connected, that now are actually functioning, and that made a huge difference. And again, there's at least one more that I know of that we need to open up. But again, we're working through it. And because theoretically, Reynolds Street will probably shut down in a couple of weeks for the winter. And then we'll pick up in the spring and
But
finish it.
the box culvert will be
Yes.
installed, so
Well,
that
that's
it
the
won't
goal,
be as
yes.
disruptive.
Mhm.
And this is probably the worst time for the church to have their big functions, but the box culvert just showed up. There's no way around, you know. Had it been nice if it was October, but that's,
Well, it was ordered in July.
yeah, yeah,
June, July.
yeah, way early, right.
And that's why I say the church has been very understanding
Oh, yeah, yes,
and
they have been.
accommodating. They've done a really good job with communicating to their parishioners and others that are visiting
Mm-hmm.
them. We've tried to make sure that, access to the, particular doorways for some of their functions is still accessible. So they've been really, cooperative in working through this right now. But yeah, it's incredibly impactful. It's
It is. Oh,
timing
no,
is never good
no, no.
whenever these projects happen, but they've been very, they've been very good to work
Well, the weather's been
with.
cooperative. I mean, we had some rain, but overall, usually there's frost in the ground now, and it would be very difficult to do what they're
Mhm.
doing. So I think it's
Right.
very fortunate.
And it's important to understand that, they're gonna get ready to button up the roadway work and the box culvert work for the season, once we get through the box culvert. But, a lot of the sidewalks along Davis Park side has been completely ripped up on that side. Those aren't getting replaced until next construction
that's right.
cycle, right? So there still will be some impact to that area that they're, all very well aware of. And we've been working through that, but, we've tried to set up, some temporary pedestrian walk spaces so people can still get around that over there. But, the good thing is through Davis Park, there is plenty of sidewalk space through Davis Park that people can navigate within the park itself. It does divert them a little bit from just being straight on the roadway, but it is still accessible. So sidewalks and the retaining wall component, which holds up the sidewalk on the church side of the property, that will be managed as part of next year's construction cycle.
Do we look at, like in our parking lot, do we look at, like, there's a lot of cracks in the concrete cover.
Yeah.
Should we look at limiting traffic or limiting load, truck traffic, or is that something maybe we should? I
We
mean, the
can look
vehicle
at it.
traffic may be okay to
Mhm.
cars, but.
Truck traffic,
Right.
we are looking at whether or not we need to post limit signs
'cause that might
on
be-
that because of the cap, and then that'll be likely prioritized in the next cycle of construction, as well as anything that goes kind of through that Brickyard area, because
Mhm.
clearly we're gonna get ready to do
Right,
the
well, that's
Brickyard
right,
project,
right,
and that was
right.
why this was really important, because we wanted to make sure that we were addressing any of the drainage system underneath before we do a big investment on the, top side of that parking lot and that general area. So those are gonna have to be done in conjunction. And so we'll be bringing those and prioritizing those as we go through, so that way we can also proceed with the installation of the Brickyard project. So these kind of all have to work together.
Yeah, we had a meeting with Brian Kent from Kenton Frost, who's doing the design of the Brickyard project. And he has copies of the plans in the areas that we're concerned with. So again, we're trying to communicate and plan it out, so we build from the bottom up. And we don't have to dig it up after we finish it.
Is there any kind of funding source other than mill rate for doing some of these improvements?
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at, is to see if there's other alternatives, you know, as to what we can use for funding source on this. You know, whether that's, and, you know, I don't want to start naming off potential funding sources, because we're still stepping through that because we're also still stepping through what is the actual cost, right? So that's currently the process that we're in right now. What's the dollar number that we need to look at for these initial investments in order to be able to get through this? So those are where we're at right now, and then that helps us understand really what is the funding source that we're going to have to, you know, to really look for. So I know Dave and Jill have definitely been trying to tackle some of that funding source and cost estimations.
So we're worried for the minor repairs that we've done, so the flooding under the railroad bridge, that hasn't happened lately, where it was 4 or 5 feet deep under there.
Nobody's been kayaking down
Yes,
Cottage
I'm just
Street.
gonna say that.
Which, well, I will remind everybody who's listening, if you see floodwaters, please do not kayak or swim or grab a pool floaty and float down them. You don't know what's in those waters,
Right.
and they can definitely be very dangerous. So, no, we've not had an event like that.
So a lot of that, well, the work that has been done, some of that has unblocked certain areas that we've had. So this study was a great thing. Without that, we'd still be in tough shape. So that was money well worth spent.
I agree.
So basically, worst case scenario, the roof on all these older culvert
Mhm.
parts, I mean, if they compromise and they collapse, does that mean everything above them is gonna come down with them?
Potentially?
Potentially.
Not sure. You know, so you have to also realize that the spans are, you know, 4 to 5 feet. So it depends on what's above them and what's the weight load from those structures above them. So I think each area is unique
Yes.
in what the impact could potentially be for a failure. But, you know, it's important to, you know, if we can address those sections as we, you know, kind of go from most critical and kind of down the road, and really create that long-term plan of how are we going to long-term manage and maintain this system and make that investment over time. We're not going to do it all in one fell swoop or in 1 year. You know, it's going to have to be an incremental, and we're going to have to continue to monitor it
Yeah.
as we go through.
Because part of, well, there's many problems, but one of the big ones is there's still many unknowns. We have more unknowns than knowns at this point. You know, a simple solution to fixing the cap is to take a larger concrete slab, you know, pre-stressed concrete, and span the entire thing. Whether we have the vertical distance from the top of the existing slab to the top of the pavement remains to be seen. I suspect in some places we do and in some places we don't. Because if we have to actually lift the cap off of the walls, I have a sneaky suspicion we'll be replacing walls. Because it's real strong in compression, not so strong in tension. So it's, again, this is a work in progress, and I'm sorry to keep running around like Chicken Little here saying the sky is falling, but this is what we have.
Yeah, and we have to be cognizant of there's some areas in which, you know, larger structures like buildings are, you know, over this. So a lot of that work, you can't move the building. So some of that work has to be done, you know, really internally. So
Yeah.
all of that has to be managed and prioritized. So clearly, you know, I think one of our next focus of attention is going to be over by the Furnace Street parking lot. That seems to be the area that has the most, some of the most significant immediate concerns based on the Phase 1 report. And then we'll also be adding in any immediate concerns from the Phase 2, which I think largely was Reynolds Street and that box culvert. And then we'll move into the 3 to 5 year. So we'll have to kind of span from there. But that'll be really the Furnace Street area is going to be our top priority for the next. So that's what they're trying to price out now and determine what potential funding opportunities might be there. And again, we have to be cognizant of timing for that. So, if there is, a grant opportunity that might be out there, and I don't know if that there is, but if the grant opportunity doesn't get awarded until a following year, that may not work with our timing in order to be able to get this done and still manage the other capital project associated with it. So we have to reasonably look at what will also fit into the overall timing of this. We don't want to look at a grant program that we won't land for 7 years. For that, we have to look at something that's more readily available and what's going to be awarded more sooner, or that we might have already coming in for grant opportunity. So that's kind of where we're at.
With all the work that's being done on the actual Westfield Congregational Church property, considering there's a retaining wall and everything else that's going on there, is any of that the responsibility of the church, or is that all falling on the town?
So the retaining wall that is underneath the sidewalk is the town's responsibility, because it is actually holding up ours. It's holding up the sidewalk, right? So that is part of that. That retaining wall system actually turns and then goes towards the church. That portion that turns and goes towards the church also has concerns with it. So the church is going to be paying for the replacement of those sections as well. And that really was that collaborative effort, because if we only replace the portion that goes underneath the sidewalk, we still have to make the corner and turn in order to be able to stabilize that piece. And then we could potentially be chasing it all the way to the church building, right? So that was the collaborative effort with the church. So the church made the investment. They approved the investment in rebuilding that, and really it'll never get less expensive for them to redo those retaining walls, because everything will already be activated. So that was part of that collaborative effort. And really, I think the more concerning one is by one of their rear doors, that rear door that has the large concrete sidewalk. That has a significant bow in it, and there's been rocks that have actually fallen out of that portion of the retaining wall. So I think it was pivotal for them, but that portion is their responsibility. That is not the town's responsibility, but they are working in conjunction with this project to address the whole thing, and it really does alleviate the possibility of the town having to continually chase a retaining wall system that has its active failures in it.
Thank you.
Mary, when you mentioned down by Furnace Street and you were talking about the railroad, is there, because it's a railroad, it's transportation, would any of this fall under the infrastructure bill for potential funding?
That's something
And-
we can look at.
And and not to be like worst case scenario, but because of, it's a train, it's heavy, obviously. Would there be a time where we would stop the train coming through, or that would become a potential issue?
I'm pretty sure the train doesn't want to see the train stop coming through. So I believe that we definitely will be in communication with the train. Clearly, through all of this, we have to have regular communication with the train as well in order for access in certain points of the area. But we would need to work in collaboration with them.
Yeah, I
So, but
understand that.
it is possible, that is an avenue for us to look at for the infrastructure bill, as to whether or not we could potentially get funding underneath that. Again, it may also come down to timing of availability of that funding to when we have to get it done. So, we really need to get, what's our scope of investment there? Like, what are we actually looking for investment, for cost dollars, and then, what's that availability? But yeah, it could be possible. And, who knows? I don't want to say that the train is going to have to do any level of investment, because,
Yeah, I was gonna
it's
say,
not
there
really
could
their
be a-
infrastructure.
Right, but
But
there
at
could
the
be a
s-
shared cost.
But at the same time,
potential
they
yeah.
they need
That's what I was
they need the train to keep running.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, Dave would like to thank you for presenting this. I know this has been something that's been worked on for a while.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a wonderful evening. If I don't get to see you, Happy holiday and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you as well.
Thank you.
We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is item 7, unfinished business, and we have none, so we'll move on to item 8, citizen statements and petitions. Ms. Clory, do we have anything submitted?
We had none submitted electronically.
Okay, thank you. If anyone would like to make comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Oriola. I live at 337 Warrington Road, Jameson. I've been a resident of Killingly for over 45 years. And my presentation tonight coincides with proclamation 6A, recognizing December 2023 as Driving Impairment Awareness Month. Title of my presentation is Safety on Our Roads. I am an avid bicycle rider and jogger. This past August, I rode my bike 50 miles in Massachusetts to support cancer research at Dana-Farber. I have not felt comfortable or safe riding my bike on our roads. Usually, I ride on the Quinnebog Bike Trail, which leads me into Brooklyn, where I follow several back roads. It appears to me red lights are only a suggestion. Too many times I have witnessed 1 to 2 automobiles racing through red lights. I would like cameras on our traffic lights to identify speeders. I understand the state of Connecticut cannot prosecute drivers that are identified as running red lights. I need your help to get legislation approved. Route 12, where I live, is a speedway for motorcycles and automobiles. Radar is needed to indicate a car's speed, similar to that on Kennedy Drive in Putnam. Most drivers, I say most, slow down once they see they are exceeding the speed limit. I, for one, am one that slows down. You don't always recognize how fast you're going until you see it flashing in front of you. It's really a great way to keep traffic speed down. The speed limit on Route 12 in Plainfield is 40 miles per hour. Once you go north and enter Killingly, it increases to 45 miles per hour. There are over 100 driveways between the Killingly line and Route 6. All too often, I have had cars almost in my back seat as I am waiting to pull into my driveway. Some even pull out and pass, even though there is a severe curve on Route 12. I would like the speed limit reduced to 35 miles per hour. Also, our pedestrian walkways need yellow caution lights activated by motion detectors or buttons pushed manually. Many people walk to Big Y for groceries or medication. There is no safe area for pedestrians to cross Route 12 as the sidewalk ends and there is no other sidewalk until they reach the front of Big Y. The traffic going through that area does not slow down for pedestrians. They're too busy trying to get where they want to go. This is a dangerous area that needs immediate attention. I would like to propose a walkway. This is in addition to that. I would like to propose a walkway under Route 6. This would be either by the Quinnebog River or the 5 Mile River. This walkway would be ideal for pedestrians and bikers. It would be similar to the one on Route 66 in Willimantic by Mackey's and the Willimantic River. I have gone to the extreme of recording a video of this walkway because I have taken my bike along that walkway to the airline trail, and I will be happy to show it to anyone or have it, if you give me your email, I'll send it to you. There is a very serious problem crossing Route 6. I have tried to cross Route 6 with my bike, and I pushed the caution button, waiting for it's okay to cross. Well, you have to look because cars are going through red lights. I have spent as many as 15 minutes. Sometimes I'll get to the middle of Route 6, and I can't get it to activate so I can cross it onto Maple Street. This is a very serious problem. We don't get a lot of pedestrian traffic. One of the things that a walkway under Route 6 would do would increase pedestrian traffic into downtown Danielson. I'm sure our shop owners would appreciate increased business. Those parking for the Riverwalk would have safe passage to cross Route 6 onto the Riverwalk and using the Quinnebog Bike Trail. Long-term, I would like to see the Quinnebog Bike Trail extended to the north and connect to the Airline Trail in Putnam, as well as to the south in Plainfield and beyond. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Are there any questions?
Sir, this is a public comment period. This isn't
Okay.
time where we have questions and answers. Thank you for your comments and presentation. Ms. Collier, I just have one question. I know it's been brought up about the crossing the road and the sidewalk over by Big Y. I know that's been discussed at council level before. Wasn't there an issue with sight lines in that area where they couldn't do anything?
I'm glad to go over that. We've actually had several conversations with Connecticut DOT because Route 12 is a state road. And so the state DOT is the one that manages any traffic lights as well as signaling along Route 12. They have specific criteria for installation of traffic lights, which the intersection or the area of Big Y entering Route 12 doesn't meet their criteria for a signal. The town has continued to explore potential opportunity for sidewalks that would potentially connect, but the town would need to gain right-of-way along one side of the roadway in order for that to take place. The town doesn't currently have right-of-way. It is a state road, so the state has a right-of-way. The town doesn't have a right-of-way. So Route 12 is a little bit of a different challenge with that, but that has been a conversation. Every year when I sit down with Connecticut DOT and go over crash data, the intersection of 12 and 6 and of 12 and 6 down by Big Y, as well as 12 and 6 up by Main Street, are always high traffic, high crash data to look at potential improvements that the state may be able to make to reduce that. Distracted driving is definitely a major cause of those accidents, but yes, we have continued to explore those potential opportunities.
What about decreasing the speed limit?
That is a state DOT, because that is a state roadway, so the state determines the speed limit along all of their state roadways. The town does not.
So is there any way to petition to decrease the speed limit?
You probably should use your mic.
Is there any way petition to decrease the speed limit?
So we do discuss during the reviews of those high crash datas around speed limits, general speed within those areas, the number of residential roads that are connecting to that main roadway, as well as the driveways and locations of mailboxes. The state really hasn't looked at modifying any of those components at this point in time. So the town can always look to, do a statement or another, communication with the state. But again, it's, we at staff level have those conversations and that dialogue with DOT, Connecticut DOT, on a pretty regular basis.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle.
Thank you.
Okay.
My name is John LaBelle, 57 Island Road, Dayville, Connecticut. I hadn't intended to say anything about this, but the gentleman that previously spoke on bicycle trails, I was on regional planning a long, long time ago, and we had a plan to run bicycle trails from New London up to the state line following the highway. I don't know whatever happened to that study, but it made some progress, and I guess it kind of died. But that was a very ambitious study. As far as creating a underpass on a highway, in other communities I've worked around the country where people have had those, they've had to close them because of muggings. So what they've done is to go above the highway, over and above. And that works. You see an example is in Niagara Falls. A couple of things I wanted to talk about was, and I'm not going to ramble. The assessments that recently went out, I've gotten a lot of comments from people that feel that there should have been optional ways of making presentations off hours and on weekends and in person versus by telephone, and just passing that on to council. The appointments to commissions, it'd be nice if commission members have read the plan of development and the charter of the community prior to their appointments. I think there's a lot of information in those documents that pertain to the history, especially the plan of development has some interesting information based on the history of this community. I am very proud of living in Killingly and people that serve on this council. I want to thank each and every one of you for the service that you provide. It's a lot of work, and it's more than 2 meetings. Yes, more than 2 meetings. I've served on council in Putnam, and I know how much work it is. And when you can accomplish something, it gives you a sense of increased pride in your community. And I encourage people who are listening tonight to come to these meetings. It's not just the fantastic things that get presented where people have a very severe concern, but it's meeting to meeting. There are things that go on here that really provide the blood source of this community. And as far as Dave's presentation goes, I've had to deal with those things. And I'm just wondering if that isn't an infrastructure. And potentially subject to funding from infrastructure. And in my past, I've been in his shoes in corporations where I've always been kind of the bad news guy, where something's broken or something's about to break, and oh, here comes Chicken Little again. But the work that he's done, I commend him on, because that is hard work. And keeping the community safe and risk-free when you're dealing with stuff like retaining walls. I've had to testify on why a retaining wall overturned and collapsed. So these are serious, serious issues. The council chambers here. I have suggestions for increasing the public view of what you do. Do something with the walls. Do a mural of the community, the history of the community. Something similar to like you might have out here in the hallway. Something similar like the building across the street. Someone did a fantastic job with that mural and portraying the history of this community. The audio system. In the 70s, I was part of the first communication system from Etna to California. Putting in, along with Jack Lagarde, for those of you who remember, a system that is similar to what you have here now today. If you had microphones that turned on automatically when you spoke, you wouldn't have to worry about pushing that button. And the people at the other end, I've watched this presentation from home. It's difficult to hear you when you speak. Get better microphones, get a better system. And also rearrange the room so that when people speak, no one has the view of the presenter's back when they're presenting, and except under dire circumstances, whoever's presenting should be here in this room presenting to respect you and the people who are sitting here who take the time to come to these meetings. And I'll be glad to help with that. Okay, I've done it. To me, it's very important. If you want community participation, make it easier for the residents of our community to participate. I'm getting close to 80. I'm almost done. I'm almost spent. But you have youth, you have people who are interested in this community. Make it easy for them. And try to develop a platform where you don't have to use Facebook, that drug that our community uses. I was looking at statistics. Do you know that teenagers spend 4 to 5 hours a day on stuff like Facebook? I don't know what the cure is, but it's certainly, to me, it's an illness. How are my 5 minutes doing? Am I up? I have other suggestions. You know, we've talked about a vision committee back a couple years ago. I know it's on your plan. And there are people in the community who would be happy to serve on that. I think I've talked enough, but best wishes to all of you for happy holidays, good health, and stay healthy. I've had 4 deaths in my family in the past 2 weeks. And it just brings to mind how short life is. And what Mr. Wood said about George Washington and Benedict Arnold. Do you know that Benedict Arnold was the person who developed the strategy for winning the revolution? Check it out. Check it out. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9, council and staff comments. I believe, Mr. Grandelsky, you were going to add something?
Yeah, the gentleman was talking about access along Route 12. A lot of that, like at Maple Street, 6 and 12, but that's right, that's the river trail. Have we done anything moving it northward? Is there anything, how is that? There was some movement with conservation, we were talking about that a number of years ago, but that was a big bottle, you know, as he said, it's hard to get across. I don't know if there was any design work done or where.
Yeah, so the town hasn't actually received any funding for designing the northern connections up. We, have conceptually, kind of looked at potentially different various paths. NECOG, Jim Larkin, has looked at a couple of, possibilities, but nothing on a formal conceptual design that has been created. The current opportunity is for the town to connect southbound to Plainfield, but that has its own challenges. Connecticut Deep through the River Trail funding, Rails to Trails program has funded $6 million, yeah, I think it's $6 million to do the connection from Killingly through Plainfield. They awarded a combined grant to Killingly for the section in Killingly would be phase 6 of our River Trail southern connection, and then Plainfield's connection all the way down to 205. The challenge with that right now is that the other factors, that a good portion of that in Plainfield and a little portion in Killingly is actually owned by Deep's Wildlife Division. And Deep's Wildlife Division will not grant an easement access for a river trail to be installed along the river or on that property, period, at this point in time, south. So while we have funding through Deep to put in a river trail southbound from Killingly all the way down to Plainfield, the pathway in order to do so is blocked currently by Deep's Wildlife Division. So Deep hasn't gotten on its own page together. So Plainfield and Killingly, we've been trying to advocate to the Deep Wildlife Division. The grant was awarded to Killingly in total with 2 conditions. One, that we, number one, Plainfield and Killingly determine who is going to oversee the actual grant administration, Killingly, Plainfield, or the state. I think Plainfield and Killingly both have come to the decision that it would make most sense for the state to oversee it, given that it spans 2 municipalities and there are 2 bridges that would be required for that section of the river trail, and that would just make it a cleaner administration between the 2. But secondly, the second condition was that we collectively got the permission or the approval by the Wildlife Division of Deep to pass through that property. So it's challenged right now. That's kind of stuck because the Deep Wildlife Division isn't moving. The northbound, that's kind of the next focus would be the northbound section. Again, it's far less clear cut on how that northbound connection would actually, make that final connection up, and really what side. So currently, right now, our river trail to the north actually goes on Tracy Road. Tracy Road. But Putnam's River Trail is actually on the other side of the river through their technology park. So where, if we follow Tracy Road all the way up, we end up having to cross over the 395 bridge, which doesn't have any pedestrian sidewalks or anything like that. The other alternative is to cross it in a different location, which would then put it in the backside of their technology park, which I believe one of their current configurations from one of the property owners there that's looking at subdividing that section has a river trail that goes down to the man-made pond that they have over there, which could potentially be a jump over the river to Killingly. So it's, there's a couple of different pathways, both have their own challenges. Trying to put another bridge over the river, that section of the river has already, I think, 5 bridges that go over it in a, I think about maybe a half mile, if that, section of the river. That's a challenge from Army Corps of Engineers and Deep Wildlife Division, because the more overpasses you put over it, the more you shade the water, and it has other impacting factors. The other side of the coin is if we continue to go in the direction that our current trail goes, which is really more of a sidewalk, you would look at it and think that's not a river trail. It's a sidewalk on the side of the road right now that dead ends. If we continue that pathway, we really connect to nothing in Putnam. We end up going over the overpass of the highway, and you end up on, completely disconnected from Putnam's River Trail. You have to then cross them over Kennedy Drive at some point, and we all know those challenges as well. So that has to all be explored. We haven't gotten design funding or, anything like that to invest in really trying to connect those parts, and the town would likely need to also make further investment in property acquisition.
Well, there has been some discussion in the
There has.
past, so I just want, that we
There
have
continues
not
to be.
just avoided ourselves that nothing was happening.
Yeah.
There is something there, but there are a lot of hurdles to get
Right,
over.
and that northern connection does continue to be, it's on our radar, and it does continue to be discussed. It's just trying to prioritize focus between the projects.
Thank you. Any other comments?
And one other comment, what John LaBelle was saying about the presenters, it's interesting, you know, they're presenting, it looks like they're presenting to the council or the P and Z, where it seems like the public is not included in that. And yeah, I feel that way sometimes too, at least, you know, you could see their face or something. When I'm sitting here, yeah, I get a shot, but I'm at this table, but when I'm participating over there, it's a whole different, little different scenario. And I also agree, I look at people coming in or some of the developers, and they're doing it via Zoom. I question their professionalism. Whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought the automatic microphones would be a great idea. I know some of the time, and I know I myself am guilty of it occasion, where I sit back further from the microphone, and I know the microphones don't pick up as well if you're sitting further back away. And I have gone back and watched meetings, and as Mr. LaBelle has said, there's times when the audio you can't hear, even if the microphone's on, because the person speaking is too far away from the microphone. I don't know if that's something we can look into. Microphones are a little more sensitive. I know then we may run into more feedback. That could be another concern as well. So.
Yeah, we have looked at some different alternatives around microphones. We haven't found a really good, consistent microphone that would, you know, work well in this scenario. But, you know, always open to suggestions, and, you know, I try and work very closely with our IT consultant Novus. They do a lot of implementation of this across the state, so they see many different configurations and many different setups. But always, you know, if anybody has any ideas around options for us to look at, I'll explore, you know, voice-activated ones to see, you know, if that's something that could be, you know, feasible. We've explored wireless ones. The challenge with those tends to be the consistency in which, you know, batteries die. But there's a lot of utilization of this room from many different users, and that can kind of lead to some of the challenges around microphones not working. So we want it to be really plug and play, because there are so many people that utilize this space that have varying levels of technology comfort. So always open to any suggestions on how we might improve any of our setups. And we are actually looking at, I remember when the camera system got installed. It's been a while. So we are actually looking for the upcoming budget to potentially look at upgrading our camera systems in this room. You know, years back, we actually had the town used to pay for somebody to sit in the room and actually work as like a videographer, you know, changing the camera angles, zooming in on the person speaking, and all that kind of stuff. That availability really went away with COVID. Jen's been our videographer back there. It is not her primary duty. She is the finance director. But most of our staff has taken that role now. We do not have anyone that comes in to assist us in that, and so we are looking at what other options we might be able to put in this room that would be a better rollout of technology. These cameras got put in 2012, I want to say, roughly, maybe 2013. So, you know, they've done their useful life. There's better technology out there that perhaps we can take advantage of and leverage. So we'll be looking at that.
Two other things. As far as the pedestrian tunnel under the highway, I completely agree with what Mr. LaBelle said as far as our better option would be pedestrian bridge. And the one I thought of instantly when he was talking about the tunnel was the one on Route 32, down in, I don't know if it's Waterford or London, up by Conn College, that they have for the college that goes up and over. Yeah, I think that would be something great, especially if there's money in the infrastructure bill.
Is there a reason it never seems to come our way? I see it all on the other side of the state. There's a lot of them that, we just get overlooked here for that.
For the overpasses?
Yeah, you see 'em a lot of other places.
Yeah, so a lot of them are tied with either active river trails, airline trails, which, we don't really have an airline trail component necessarily through our area. The section of railroad that comes through here is actually an active railroad. So that doesn't fall under the airline trail. Pomfret recently just got, Pomfret and Putnam recently just got a whole bunch of airline trail improvements, one of which was, an overpass over 44 that recently happened. So Killingly's River Trail, I would classify that as a more recent addition to the state's overall infrastructure. They put that in. We gained the property for the river trail really from the realignment of Route 6 and the elimination of the rotary, the old rotary that used to be there. Actually at Route 12 and 6 over by Big Y. Route 12 used to go underneath,
Yeah, no, that-
right? And
it's funny that
they
when
actually
when
filled
it's
it all in.
Yeah, it already existed.
It did
The
exist.
sidewalk existed.
It did, and they filled it all in when they realigned Route 6. So it's just a matter of how we might be able to attract that, and it may be that we can help, especially with the northern connection on the river trail. That may be a better funding opportunity. They've been really heavily investing more long term in trail connection, and that is going to be a huge that's going to be a major section for connection. 6 north, that section of River Trail to go north. We have to eventually cross 6, whether it's, Killingly or Brooklyn. Somebody's got to get over Route 6. And how do we safely make that for pedestrians? That may come into that phase of project, is to try and create that connection over. The Route 12 and, the sidewalks over by Route 12 and Big Y on Route 12, that's an ongoing challenge. It may come to a closer fruition of us being able to demonstrate need for a lighted signal at that intersection when something goes into where the old Family Dollar is, depending on the traffic flow that may generate. That may be enough, because Big Y definitely has seen a lot. I think there's a lot more traffic that's regularly going through Big Y. You may be able to get it may reach a threshold at that point in time, but ultimately there's still the challenge of the sidewalks. On that side, we've actually talked about whether or not it makes sense for it to really cross from Big Y straight across to Route 12, because then on the other side of Route 12 to the wastewater treatment plant side, right at Big Y, because the other side of the road is actually, would make the connection to the river trail. So again, trail connection. We would be able to potentially connect it to that trail connection. And that provides that funding opportunity. So there are some avenues that we've been trying to explore, and it's really about, I know I get how busy that is. I'm there frequently. And it can be a real challenge to even get out of Big Y. If you're trying to get out of there and take a left-hand turn, it's challenging at times. You sometimes sit there for quite some time. So we have to, continue to encourage DOT to do some traffic counts. We did have them, usually once a year, when we do the high accident locations, usually they have their consultant also, offer to the town that they will, conceptually look at 2 major points that the town considers a concern and tries to make recommendations for improvements. That was one of them we did a little over, I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. We had them look at that, and their suggestion was, yeah, just keep them on the same side of the road until you get up to the Route 6 intersection, and then, cross them over with a lighted signal there. So I don't know that that's really going to be the best alternative. The other area, the other high crash area that we asked them to potentially look at for improvement was Ware Road, the intersection at Ware Road and 21. The sight line there is very poor, 21 crests, and so we've had a fair amount of accidents there. We're kind of outside of the window of when there was a fatality over there, but we continually bring up there was fatalities there. And really what they have to do is they have to lower 21, and that comes with a large price tag. So we're trying to come up with alternatives around how to make awareness around some of those areas, but that's kind of what we've been doing.
The one other comment I had, talking about Vision Committee, also talking about, we know we have got the upcoming town council goal setting meeting. I'd like to see a way we could, in a sense, advertise that more, get the awareness out for the public, to where when we're here for our goal setting meeting, if we've got the public here to speak during a public comment period ahead of time, and then encourage them to sit here through it to see, to hear what our goals are, and to see how we look through what everybody's individual goals are, and to work together to come to a common set of goals for the whole council, to see what actually goes on. Because I know that's one meeting that isn't televised usually. So that was also a time where if you've got someone who doesn't like to come and speak because they're on camera, it would actually be off camera.
Sure, yeah, we historically have not televised the goal-setting session to really allow for just that more relaxed situation. But definitely once I have what the dates and all the information on it, I will definitely get it out onto all the platforms. And I can even put it up on the library sign, so people might, be more readily aware that it's going to be taking place. So, absolutely.
And that's all I had. Anything else? Ms. Murphy?
What is the capability of people zooming in? Like, is there a limit or?
No, we don't have any limits with regards to people zooming in. The town, pretty much all of our meetings, all of our boards and commission meetings have been considered in-person meetings. We've only had board members or council members zooming in, as opposed to trying to manage public zooming in. We have maintained that electronic public comment email, so that way people can always put in a public comment via email. It always gets distributed to the council and put up on the town's website as an alternative as well for public comment on that. And then we also do post the right after. We can't do it live at the same time as Facebook Live, but usually by the next day, sometimes it has to go the following day depending on what we have for staff. We put all of our council meetings on YouTube as well. So people can go onto YouTube and also watch the meetings on YouTube.
Because that might be a thought, like a one thing, so you're not balancing so many, zoom-ins, a one vision meeting where people know they can zoom in.
Sure,
Yeah.
and I can always draft a resolution for the council to create that visioning committee, and then you may want to, if you're going to do a visioning committee, you would have a number of community outreaches that would take place, whether in person, online, all of that, surveys, that type of stuff, in order to be able to generate, but it depends on what are you looking at for doing visioning.
And I think a lot of things would fall under that as well, especially considering like we've got the Brickyard project coming up and how that's going to change the face of downtown, and to get the public input and stuff like that. And other topics that could be discussed during that would be the constabulary. I know that's another thing we need to consider. What is that going to look like going forward? But I definitely feel having public input is so important to the jobs we do. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item up is item 10, appointments to boards and commissions, and we have none. We'll move on from that to item 11A, Board of Education Liaison, which we do not have one. 11B, Borough Council Liaison, I do not see him this evening either. So we will move on to item 12A. Can I get a motion to adopt the summary report on general fund appropriations for town government?
I'll make that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion? Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 12B. Can I get a motion to accept the system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education? Motion has been made by Ms. Murphy,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on. Next item is 13A, Town Manager's Report. Ms. Calorio, if you could.
Sure, so the first item I wanted to give you last time, or November meeting, you had the presentation from the revaluation company. And we had the conversation about how much of the grand list is commercial, industrial versus, or business related versus residential. I didn't have those numbers readily available, so I did get that breakdown from our assessor's office. So residential is just about 58%. The commercial industrial is 42%. Of real estate, most of our personal property declarations are all business related. So that is, of the total grand list, commercial, industrial, personal property, or personal property as a total makes up about 28%. So when you look at the total grand list, the split is fairly even between commercial, industrial versus residential. So I know there was a concern around reval and there being a shift between the two. They are relatively evenly split here in this town. We don't have a very big preponderance of residential with only a very small amount of commercial, industrial. It's pretty split. The next one, Northeast District Department of Health, I did incorporate or include the letter of withdrawal that I did transmit to the to NDDH, the Board of Directors. NDDH, since you voted on that, they did vote to not renew the Executive Director's contract. That contract currently expires on January 19th of 2024, so next month that does expire. The board also, NDDH's board also took action to issue an RFP for consulting services, and that would be for them, that consultant, to assist them in reviewing their entire organizational structure, to how they can improve this and provide better services to their members within the district and our communities. Based on, the concerns and that the town has had with the performance, I had issued a letter of no confidence of the executive director, as did collectively NECOG membership unanimously also had sent that letter of no confidence with regards to the executive director. The town, with having taken action by doing that withdrawal letter, and really looking at what alternatives we may have, I really feel at this point the town would probably have the option of creating its own health district, its own health department. I don't know that many of the other municipalities, given the steps that the board has taken to address the major concerns that we had in the leadership and pivoting on that. I don't know that many of the others will be necessarily looking to join independently or form a district. So I will be looking for guidance as to whether or not the council would be looked to revisiting staying with NDDH or really creating our own health department. That will be impactful to our upcoming year's budget if we are going to be looking for doing our own health department. the town would no longer be eligible for state per capita subsidy for health. So I did want to put that out, that there has been significant structural changes, if you will, by NEDH, and I didn't know if that is going to, pivot the town on their position that they currently have taken. So, if that's going to be something for consideration, that just let me know if that's something that needs to go on to the next agenda. We did receive a communication from NDDH for their 2023 through 2026 community health needs assessment. So that is a larger page report that you received in your packet. I don't know if anybody has any questions on NDDH before I move on to, I don't really need to go over the Reynolds Street box culvert because clearly you've seen that. And you've seen everything that's led up to that. So we're moving along with that one. KMS, there was questions with regards to the temporary heat. I did include a memo from Mary Brom, the Community Development Administrator. She also is the liaison to Permanent Building Commission, outlining everything with regards to temporary heat. So there's two primary reasons for the reason why there's temporary heat charged to the project. One is we knew, number one, this is a phased renovation, so we were going to be taking portions out of service and having to leave other portions in service. Rather than bid it with having the contractor try and assume the total scope of that temporary heat situation before having to get into exactly what was going to be needed, they did it on a time and material basis, and it would be coming out of the mechanical contractors contingency. So they had them build a contingency into their contract, and it was going to get paid out of that. So that way the town would only be paying for what they actually had to do for temporary heat, as opposed to something with a lot of question marks and unknown. Secondly, the other second factor is supply chain delays in receiving those permanent units. So, a standard clause that's in a lot of the contracts and has been in contracts for, all the time, even, way before COVID, was addressing the unforeseeable and unavoidable events that interrupt an expected course of action. Clearly, a supply chain delay is not necessarily the fault of the mechanical contractor. They can't order the product until we give them all of the full specifications for it. If they order it and then they find out that it's delayed, that's not necessarily they don't have control over that. And so that also ends up falling under those contracts. And those are, I've checked with our legal team, I've checked with our architectural team to, find out, like, what are they seeing across the industry? Standard language. It's in the AIA standard contract language. We actually is used for pretty much across all of the contracts. So I've outlined those costs. Those have all been reviewed by a permanent building commission. So the permanent building commission reviews in depth all of those. We have a mechanical contractor on our permanent building commission who is very familiar with these, and they have no problem in scrutinizing the reasons why behind and the costs associated with. The contractor, Downs, would actually have the ability to pass these charges to the town in owner's contingency, which would limit what we would potentially be able to reactivate for items that maybe we value engineered or reduced scope out of the project for budgetary concerns. It would limit our ability to, bring some of those back into fruition. They have opted to not take that step. Instead, they are utilizing the construction manager contingency, which means the dollar value that has been agreed to for the cost of the project to Downs Construction does not change. They're not increasing the value of their contract. So That's essentially the temporary heat situation. They largely, you'll note on there that there's still two cost components that they're still working through at this point in time. Permanent Building has been apprised of those. They had that discussion at their last meeting around that. They're expecting that they'll have those to them in the upcoming meeting in January. And that should complete that component. But again, some of this is really, a good chunk of this is really related to that phasing component of having a active, occupied renovation that has to take place. The last component that I put in here was the Blueville Mill fire. I'm sure all of you have seen many of the pictures that occurred for that. So the structure clearly is a complete loss. I do want to recognize our fire crews, all the fire crews that responded. They were amazing. I've been on now 2 major fire scenes with so many agencies that respond. It is I am still awestruck really at how, like, you would think they're all one team. You would never recognize that somebody's from a different outside agency or a different town or a different area. They come in and, you know, they just, they're amazing to watch. And because of their stellar performance, you know, there was those 2 abutting properties that the occupants were not displaced. It was just melted siding. It's completely amazing to have happen, given the size and amount of fire that was there. Unfortunately, you know, we saw a lot of comments about, you know, why are we demolishing the building so quickly? So that was required for us in order to be able to get to the hot spots, some of the areas the fire department really couldn't get to, and that we needed to move. The way that the structure went down was the roof collapsed, the floors collapsed, and then you had unstable wall structures that were, you know, kind of acting like an oven, right? They were holding everything in. The tower in the front was literally like an oven. It was that middle structure. In order for the fire departments to really get at some of those hot spots, especially the backside of the tower, we had to demolish the sides of the building in order to get there. Once you demolish the sides of the building, the front structure is no longer stable anymore, and that has to come down as well for public safety. That tower was 80 feet tall. So we had to address that as we were going through. It also, it was unsafe for investigators to also gain access because of the way the structure was and because there was still so much hot spots in there. So it was also necessary in order for them to be able to, so as they were demolishing, what people didn't see was as they were demolishing, investigators were trying to peek in places that they could safely do so in order to be able to see if they could, obtain or get any evidence. That is still under investigation by, so this Connecticut State Police Major Crimes Unit and the State Fire Marshal's Office, they both have those investigations, and those are active investigations. The town currently has incurred just a little over $45,000 for the demolition, the refueling of those fire apparatus. There was, we had to have 2 fuel drops for the fire apparatuses to continue to work, and about $4,500 for security fencing. All of this we will be invoicing the current property owner for. We will also be liening the property for that. But that's currently the cost. It's been currently covered through contingency, but again, we will be hopefully looking to recoup those costs. The town was in regular contact with EPA, so we have the $100,000 EPA grant from the Brownfields Division on the remediation, final environmental testing and remediation for this site. I did meet with EPA Brownsfield Division on site on the 5th of December, and we reviewed the conditions of it. We checked all of their monitoring wells to just see that we could gain access to them and see what the existing condition was of them. And we talked through several different possibilities around utilizing alternative grant funds to be able to reassess environmentals at this point in time, given that there were environmental hazards within the structure. The next steps are really to identify what is remaining within the rubble, and how you would have to dispose of the rubble, whether it has to go out as hazardous waste, or if the levels of that hazardous waste is low enough that it could just be hauled off separately, so not as non-hazardous waste. So we're looking to see if there's grant funds that could be utilized for creating that remediation plan and creating those cost estimates to hopefully still be able to move that we really need to get rid of the pile of rubble and to eventually move that property forward in some meaningful way for that section of the community. At the same time, while we had them out, I take them everywhere I can while I have them, and we took a ride over to Bailey Hill. And I said, come see the next one. And so they willingly came, and we went and got onto that site and took a look around there as well. And they gave us some, potential options for that site as well. So hopefully we'll be able to move something forward with that. So again, for anybody that isn't familiar with that site, Bailey Hill is the old Acme Mill on Bailey Hill Road. We had a massive fire there, March of 2019. It was my second week on the job. It was the day of budget presentations. It was the fastest way I've ever presented a budget, hands down. But so that one, we had active developers. They were in the process of remediation. They had their real snafu, if you will, at the time was there is a structure that is over the sluiceway, and it was significantly compromised then. It's really compromised now, and Connecticut DEP and EPA were concerned they needed to demolish that structure off from the main mill site, main mill building, but EPA and DEP were concerned with any demolition and debris getting into the sluiceway and impacting the waterway. And so that was their challenge, was trying to develop a plan on how they would handle that without impacting the waterway. And unfortunately, in that fire, that's the only portion of the structure that remains standing. That was the only portion of the structure that wasn't impacted by fire. So that one, it was kind of an L-shaped structure. This was the sluiceway. There was the main mill structure. It was a three-story building. That one, the fire started in approximately the middle portion of the large section of the mill building. So when the fire took it, it was a slower acting fire than the one that happened at Blueville Mill, but it consumed the middle parts, and that one had a lot more wood structure in it, and then the floors collapsed in like this, and it protected that sluiceway building, which was the old mechanical rooms for that. So it didn't end up, that structure didn't have as much impact from the fire. So that is largely still standing. It has a lot of impact at this point in time. There's a lot of collapse inside that structure, which EPA was able to see. So they're gonna try to see what assistance they can bring to the town to be able to demolish that structure, which is a clear hazard, as well as how do we also deal with the actual rubble. The security fence is still up, but it continually gets compromised. The property owners haven't been in communication with the town now in a few years. They did pay, I will say that the property owners did pay those initial invoices that we sent to them as well for the demolition of that site, the fueling, the same type of costs that we just incurred with Blueville Mill. The owners of the Acme Mill did reimburse the town for those costs, but subsequently they really haven't had any interactions with the town on that site. So we're hoping to be able to try and re-engage that, and try and get that one moving forward. And then on their way out of town, I told them to take 101 straight out of town and pass the other one on Prim Mill. And so we had a conversation about all 3 mill. I don't want anybody to think that we, whenever I get EPA, DEEP, any of those guys in front of us, we're talking about all of them. So we took every opportunity that we had. We had a lot of conversation about Prim as well. So, and we're hoping to have them reactivated. So as you can see, the fire picture that I gave you, that was at 2 a.m. That was roughly 2 a.m. That was just after I got there at 2 a.m. The fire got called in at 12:58 a.m. So that's an hour in to that. So it went really fast, and it, we know that the structure, when the fire department arrived just a little after 1, the roof was completely collapsed. The second floor was completely collapsed in, and they were all the way down to the first floor at that point in time. So it was really fast, and then you can see the debris pile that we have thereafter. I did attach also the, for Reynolds Street, just to back up a little bit, I did attach what we have sent out on all social media platforms. We shared it with Winnie. We have it on our town website with regards to the closure and how pedestrians may be able to navigate around the closure at Reynolds Street, for anyone that's interested. So, and then lastly, I did include for you separately this equity profile from 2021. So this is just this Data Haven is the one that compiles this, and this is just statistical data that they have compiled from the census and just in general. So I just wanted to include it. It has a lot of demographic information across, all facets of our community. So I included that.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Mr. Wayhead.
How much do you figure the Tempede is gonna cost the town?
So the total right now is about $143,000. I believe that the last estimate that we got for the remaining 2 components will likely be about another, I think they said 30,000, so probably around 170,000.
Is
That'll
that
be charged
something
for the
that,
project.
is that something that the design team didn't return the submittals in time for them to order the units?
No, it was, part of it was just in the phasing of it and how we had to do how they had to design around the phasing. We did phase 1, which dealt with trying to remove the existing portable unit and prepare the site. The phase 2 went out later. And so the mechanicals were already gonna be impacted with the removal of that portable classroom. So it was a matter of timing with that, and we had made the collective decision that putting it in as a contingency and allowing the town to pay it based on actual cost versus assumption would be the more responsible way of doing that. So that was the approach that we took through that bidding process. So that's largely that's where that came from. So it's not necessarily the design team leaving something out. They recognized that there was going to need to be temporary heat, but that all of that wasn't necessarily completely vetted out. And given that it was a renovation, we all know that when you go into a renovation, there are unknowns that occur. And dealing with it on a contingency basis seemed to be the most appropriate response.
Who's our OPM?
Your OPM,
Yeah, our owner's project
So,
manager?
yeah, so
Who's their
that's
representative?
that's Downs Construction. They are
But
our
who's for the town?
construction manager. They're a construction manager at
I
risk.
understand it, but usually
We-
there's an owner.
We didn't also do an owner's rep. We do have a commissioning agent that works for the town, so it's similar to an owner's
Yeah,
rep.
they just do
So
the units and the mechanicals.
No, they also review they review all of the brick
Yeah,
structuring, Testing, all of that is also done by them as well too. So the commissioning agent has also been involved. But we didn't do, the state doesn't allow a construction manager at risk and an owner's rep. And this project is 72% reimbursed by the State Office of School Construction. And the temporary heat is a reimbursable component.
So we're getting paid back for that?
Yeah, at the rate of about 72%, a little over 72%.
Ms. Murphy, did you have something?
Yeah, so I'm just a little bit confused, I apologize. The mill fire and the funding that we had, the $250,000, do we have to start from scratch?
Yes. So the $250,000, we're not going to be able to take that grant because that was for, conceptual design, potential feasibility of reuse, as well as, and so the structure's gone. So now we have to really start from the beginning. We're not even sure exactly how much of the $800,000 we'll be able to use now, given that the structure is no longer there. So we have to basically go back to redoing all the testing that has already been done, because now it's demolished. So we don't have identified locations of where that environmental hazards are. any
I'm
longer.
sorry, could you say that again about the 800,000, did you say?
Yeah, the $800,000 EPA grant. It's not yet clear as to whether or not we'll still be able to use any of that funding for this, because that was Brownsfield's grant, and now this is this is remediation in a different avenue. So you don't generally get a lot of grant funding to clean up rubble piles. That's essentially what we get out of this. But, we have property owners that aren't engaged, and so we're looking to see if there's ways that the EPA and DEEP can provide some level of funding or open up funding avenues to be able to develop a remediation plan for these sites, because we no longer have identified locations of hazardous materials, and we don't know how much has been burned off through the fire.
Mr. Cottula?
You might have answered my question already, because you said not engaged with the owners. You still haven't had any contact with them, with all your efforts to try to get a hold of them?
Correct. We continue to try and make efforts to contact.
Thanks.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is 14A. Can I get a motion to adopt the resolution appointing the town attorney?
I'll
Mo-
second it.
Motion's been made by Ms. Barclay, seconded by Mr. Cottula. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this?
So at the start of every election or council cycle, by charter, the town council is required to appoint their legal counsel no later than the 15th day of February. The town has been engaged with Halloran and Sage since early 2020. That was the last time that we went out to RFP. There's no requirement for the town to go back out for RFP continuously on that, unless there is concerns for performance or to retest the market for cost implications. Halloran and Sage has not changed their rates since we entered into our initial agreements with them. I will say that Halloran and Sage has been very responsive to the town, to myself, to all of the staff, council, other boards and commissions. They've made themselves readily available after hours. I've had communications with them as late as into the wee hours of the morning when it's been necessary. So they definitely have taken a lot of steps, and we continually, if there is a significant case, there's been multiple times that we have gotten courtesy discounts, even where they have reduced fees and not even charged us on the same hourly rate that they have that we're contracted for with them. So we've been at the staff level very pleased with their response, and they've provided solid information, maybe not always the information we want. or the answer that we want, but it is, it is appropriate. So, they do provide trainings. So if there's ever trainings that council, boards and commissions, they've come and done boards and commission trainings, they're more than willing to do any of those. So I would recommend reappointment of them.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council members? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda. Next item up is item 14C. Can I get a motion to adopt a resolution appointing town council's recording secretary?
I'll make that motion.
So your next one is actually special counsel.
Did I miss one? I did. I apologize. Got ahead of myself and moved the paper too fast. So the next item is up is 14B, not 14C. Can I get a motion to adopt a resolution appointing special counsel?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Ms. George, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Calory, could you go over this?
Sure, so there's two additional, well, we had called these our special counsel. They're very specific legal services that we receive. The first one, both are serviced by Pullman and Comley. The first one is for our tax sales, so pretty much annually, we go through a process of tax sale, and this is a way for us to collect those back taxes. It does generally result in, actually largely, people pay their back taxes and they end up not going through the tax sale process. For those that don't ever pay those back taxes, it results in the transfer of the property ultimately. But those legal fees are paid by the purchaser of the property, the person that is getting awarded based on that tax sale, which is really functions very much like an auction. The other one is our bond counsel. So this is our legal counsel that we utilize when we're issuing debt, and we've been utilizing Pullman and Comley. And for debt issuances, we may go many years working with them on a project, or having them review projects and processes. And we don't pay those services until we actually issue debt. So we may even go through the phase of, getting services from them on a project that ultimately never gets approved and never goes to bond issuance. We don't get a fee, we don't get charged for that. It is only when we are issuing debt that we then pay for, and it's based on that project. So they don't fold in all the other projects that they didn't get paid for. So, and those are set fees based on the actual dollar value that we are bonding for, not necessarily an hourly rate. So it's been very reasonable for the town, and they've provided really good service to the town through that bond issuance. And I would recommend Pullman and Comley for both of these services.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 14C. Can I get a motion to adopt the appointment of the town council's recording secretary?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Ms. George. Ms. Clory, could you go over this?
Sure, so again, this is part of the charter, is to reappoint or appoint the recording secretary for the council. The fees that you have here are the historic fees that has been charged by the recording secretary, or that has been approved by the councils previously. The last time this was modified was in 2015, I believe, was the information that we determined. That was the last increase, and it went from $270 per meeting to $287. The hourly rate of $23.50 remained the same. That goes back, I think, decades. We didn't get back far enough to determine when the last time that had been revised. The council had requested at your organizational meeting that I look at how much is being paid to other recording secretaries. Internally, the next person, planning and zoning, the planning and zoning recording secretary gets paid $210 for a meeting, flat rate for a meeting. All the other ones are substantially lower than that. There is a good chunk now of our recording secretaries that are actually staff that we either we are at the meeting and then we prepare the minutes during our regular workday. So there's no additional stipend or payment for the attendance of that meeting. They're attending that meeting anyway. And it's either they get paid via overtime or comp time, or they're given comp time in order to be able to recoup that additional time. I did reach out, we did look at, tried to look at the area for what other equivalent, like Board of Selectmen recording secretaries. What we found in the area, or the ones that did respond back to me, was that they generally had a staff member, like the the executive assistant that for the selectmen attends the meetings either in person or remotely, and then does the minutes during the regular workday. So they either get paid overtime or they get paid, or they're allowed to take additional comp time in order to be able to compensate them for the actual attendance of the meeting. The New London County area, they had just recently actually done a survey on that, and we did review those results. By and large, they're very similar in that a lot of them had staff that were taking minutes and then doing it during the workday, or most of them, I think the highest one was about $80. That was an $80 amount for the actual meeting itself. So I had shared that with the recording secretary as well. I think I shared some of those spreadsheets with the chair and the vice chair. But that's largely what we found in our research of costs.
Thank you. I will open up for questions, comments.
So this is the time when we have this resolution in front of us, so we can increase from the floor.
Yes, you can make any amendment to this resolution as the council sees fit. I left it the same way.
As
It
what
would be
it's
up to
been
the
since-
council for making a modification.
So I'd like to amend it to read for $315 per meeting and $25 per hour.
So there's a motion to amend the resolution to those amounts of $3.15 an hour, or excuse me, $3.15 per meeting and $25 per hour. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. George. I will open up for discussion on the amendment to the resolution. I do have,
Last time
oh,
you said change was when?
Based on our research, the top number, the 287, that was increased, that increase came in 2015. The prior to that, it was $270. The bottom number has not been increased in decades, from what we can gather at this point.
thank you. Any other comments, questions? I just had one. No, go ahead, Ms. George.
I just want to say Beth does an amazing job, and sometimes we're here till midnight, and very seldom do we go back through the minutes and have to have anything explained, or, so she does a great job. I think well deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I would like to add that I agree with what Ms. George said. I just do have one question. So the flat fee, that includes all the time outside of the meeting when she's got to create the minutes for the meeting as well? So it
Correct.
isn't just her time here in the meeting, it's everything she's got to do afterwards as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I know when I was looking at the numbers, I was kind of a little bit taken aback, because we seem like we've been paying a lot, but I think that's something that, when I've talked to other people in the community that deal with other towns, we take care of our employees, and so they're willing to stick around, and they do a good job, and yeah, Beth does, I mean, she puts up with a lot during our meetings sometimes, and our meetings can go really long some days. I think this is, 8 years without a raise is, and the other one was before when her aunt was even here, so Yeah, I think this is a good thing.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll get back to the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda. Next item up is 14D. Can I get a motion to adopt the resolution adopting the town council's rules of procedure?
Make that motion.
Motion has been made by Mr. Curtula, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this?
Sure, so this is the same rules of procedures that the town council had approved 2 years ago. And it basically just, outlines the structure of your meetings, any additional processes within the council. So in order for the town council to make any amendments to this, the amendment has to be actually submitted in writing. The council can then accept that and submit it on the subsequent meeting for potential approval. So nothing can be changed in the same meeting that it's introduced. The introduction has to happen, and then it would have to slate for the subsequent meeting in order for any change to happen.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions, comments? Mr. Curtula? No? Oh. One thing I would like to add is just considering these are our rules of procedure, and the fact of Mr. Wood's comments earlier is just a reminder that we do serve the public. We are here to do our job that the public has voted us in for. And then I was looking through the one of the books we have. It's the town organizational chart, where it shows at the head of it is our voters, and then next in line is us, and then underneath the council it then comes down to the boards and commissions, our town manager, and the town attorney. Just a reminder that we are here to serve the people, and considering that this is our rules of procedure, I just wanted to highlight that. Any further comments?
So, I'm just confused, because I was going to mention the organizational chart. Is it already there, Jason?
The organizational chart?
Yeah.
Yes, it does exist. It's in
Yeah.
the booklet that gets handed out to all council members.
Yep, it's also in our audit every year.
Yep.
And we also include it in any bond issuances. The organizational chart is in that as well, too. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is discussion of town council liaisons to boards and commissions. Due to all sorts of technical difficulties this time around, I didn't get some of the responses until the last couple days. And then I threw something together and went to make a couple adjustments this evening before the meeting, and my computer wouldn't load up. So
Glad I'm not the only one.
I started from scratch and basically went through digging up all the responses I had got on my phone, going through emails, text messages, every different way that I got them in. I did discuss with my vice chair slightly a few of them before the meeting started. And I do have them in this mess of paperwork
Do you
here.
need copies made of anything?
Right now, it's all chicken scratch on paper.
Okay. Do you,
So, one thing I just, yep,
you want to send it my way so I can type it up for you?
yes. So considering, like I said, I mean, there's been some issues with emails that got sent and didn't get received, and who even knows, and then the added issue I had myself tonight is time to replace my 12-year-old computer, as we talk about old microphones. Mhm. Yep. So, that being said, we will have these out within the next day or two. We'll have them to the town manager. That way she has them. I will forward them out through email to all the council members. And
If you want, once I type them up, I can email them to all the council members.
Okay.
And then I will also email them to all of the staff, so that way they
They
know
have-
who their respective
Yep.
liaisons are, in case, I'm sure some of them have changed. We will put them out, and then we will also update the website accordingly.
All right.
So,
Okay. All right. Any further discussion, questions regarding this?
When are those going to be effective, for January? Or are we
Uh,
finishing out our
Pretty much
missions?
effective now. Once you receive them.
Okay, well, Board of Edit's tomorrow night, so
Yes.
who's you assign? Just wanna make sure, if I don't have to go.
who's Board of Ed?
That's why if I'm not anymore, I don't wanna step on, I
Trying
don't
to go
wanna,
through all my
take it
chicken
away from the
scratch.
new person.
Did you leave? I thought you
Why don't you
left
just
that
make
one.
some copies and pass them around?
I was gonna say, yeah, probably a good idea.
Of this
It's
mess?
chicken scratching. I'll figure it out. Patty, I would say probably plan on going.
Yeah,
And then that
yep.
one will be effective for next
Yep.
month.
Yep.
I will, as soon as I get them, I will work tomorrow on trying to get them out to everyone. I may need some clarification based on what he held up. So I might need some clarification over the phone. So give us this week to get that ironed out, and hopefully by Friday we'll get them out to everybody. So plan on whoever this week, keep your existing status quo, and then potentially by next
Starting
week
on
we're
Monday.
changing. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will say whoever gets economic development, January 2nd's meeting has been canceled, so they will not meet until March, so.
That was you, Patty.
It's on? Oh, that's me.
All right. So moving on in the agenda, now that I've buried my agenda.
And by the way, Tony, that's some of those extra meetings that they didn't tell you about.
Yes. All right, so moving on to the agenda, item 15 is new business. We have none. Item 16 is council member reports and comments.
Oh, sorry, not to interrupt. Ed had brought in the.
Oh, that's right. There
No,
was-
that got
nope,
rescinded.
that got
Oh, so it
rescinded.
rescinded,
That,
so
yes,
the
that got,
attorney's gonna look.
Yep.
Okay, my
Yep.
bad, sorry.
yep,
Carry on.
okay. Council member reports and comments. Mr. Grandelski, we'll start with you.
Conservation Commission, they've talked about the environmental award, they're working on that. We brought up about the forest management plan for Chase Reservoir, which no one bid on the last time, so that will be going out again. They're looking at keeping track, looking at some of the kiosks at the conservation areas to make sure that they're intact. Bus tours are on the agenda. They're talking about developing another bus. They have 3, they're looking at possibly a 4th one. So this would be a brand-new one that, they're so well received. So, they're always doing something with that. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Wayhead?
I have nothing.
Ms. Murphy?
I don't either. Mine were, I believe they both didn't have quorum, if I remember correctly.
Mr. Cottula?
Well, I'd like to welcome Tony to the council. Look forward to working with you, and if you have any questions, reach out to, we're all very approachable, so.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Permanent Building Committee, we had a walkthrough of the new addition, and if I remember right, they said they're gonna turn that over to the students during the Christmas shutdown. They're moving into that.
Yes.
That's,
So next week will begin the
yeah.
turnover process, moving will be occurring. It's a big time.
there's still a lot to do, but they've done an awful lot to that building since in a short amount of time.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I'd like to thank the first responders that took care of the Blueville fire and all their efforts to keep everybody in their homes and not having any injuries at all. That was an amazing task to do that by itself. And also the crew that decorated Davis Park, once again. It looks, it looks great. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Wakefield?
Economic Development only meets on odd months, so we didn't have one for this month. Parks and Rec was supposed to meet the fourth Monday in November, but that got pushed. And then they really didn't have a whole lot on there. I will say Frosty's Big Night Out went really, really well. It's always so well received, and you know, it's for a couple hours, and the families get to have some nice time. Breakfast with Santa went well. That was this past weekend. The way they started, when they started doing the setting up the different waves for eating, because they had done that because of the COVID when we first opened back up. It just works out really well. I continue to do the crafts with the kids. I think they did about 100 little ornaments that I went through this time. I love going shopping after Christmas because I get everything for like almost nothing. And so it's a nice way to give the kids a little something extra. Some of them, like, I come in and they say, I got this one already, and I did this ornament, and I did that ornament, and so they actually have a lineup. So it's nice to see them establishing a tradition for that. I was just talking with them. I guess there was a senior event yesterday at the rec center that was well received. Like 50 people. You know, their weekly movies are there's like 70, 80 people, seniors that show up for the Wednesday movies every week, which is great because, you know, that's, you know, one thing that working with the population that I do as a nurse, that's huge for our elderly to be able to get out and socialize and interact, because that's so important for every aspect of their lives.
It is quite the social gathering.
Oh, and yeah, they look forward to the soup and stew, story and stew that they have, and their picnics during the summertime and in the springtime. Oh yeah, those, and the trips they take, oh man. We get some pretty active seniors around here. There's over, I think, 300, they were saying, register for Youth Hoop. So that's great, that's up and running well. So our kids are active, our seniors are active, the families have lots to do. And yeah, I'm just really impressed with the whole Main Street look and everything in town. I know my street on North Street Logis went over the top with 60,000 lights inside and outside in the greenhouses. So, I mean, Killenly's looking very, very festive this year. So, but yeah, I will say, I will echo what Mr. Woods said, that, yeah, we are servants, you know. We serve the people, and sometimes it's those little things that make a difference. That little something that you don't think very much of is a huge, and I believe, is it Williamsville is giving away winter clothes, the fire department. They're doing their clothes giveaway this weekend, I believe.
They are, and also the rec department is also doing toy assistance. So they're going to be servicing 50 families. They are going to be doing about 110 kids. So we collected toys here, and they had gotten donations from several of our corporate partners, in town to be able to supply toys. So, many of the toy drives have certain eligibility requirements, and that sometimes can turn away families that, we in the northeast corner are a very proud bunch. And it's sometimes people won't reach out if they have to disclose too much of their information. The program that we're doing through the rec department, it's kind of a no questions asked. It's just, you have a kid, you need assistance. They don't, so the way that program is run, the family provides basic information about the child. Bucky and his staff actually fill a bag with stocking stuffers as well as toys. He always tries to put in a set of pajamas that would fit the child, and he does that for all the way up through teenage years. And so this is really our first year doing that. So to have servicing 50 families, and of that it makes up about 110 kids. That's really great. That otherwise would probably be unserviced for the Christmas season. So it was a really great turnout for the first time of us doing that, and it's just really great. So yeah, that's another thing that we're providing to the community.
And other than that, nothing else going on.
Thank you. I had in Wetlands Watercourse last Monday before our organizational meeting. I actually had to cut out of there short before the meeting finished. 3 of the applications that came up were for 1602 North Road, 476 Bailey Hill Road, and then the other one I was there for was Town of Killenly for the Quinnebog River Trail. They are planning a site walk for at least those 3 for this Saturday, and it is open to the public if you wanted to go on the site walk. And that's all I have. Ms. George.
So I have a few things. First off, I attended on November 30th. We had the NECOG meeting. It was executive session, but it was about KB Ambulance and their contract. We'll be discussing that in the next NECOG meeting, what came out of that. BOE meeting, they started a new program. It's called Board Shoutouts. So what they're doing, it's pretty cool. So they are giving board members, all of them, a way to recognize individuals or groups for their efforts and contributions to either to the school or to the community, to across the board. So that's really nice. They had Mr. Largent come with the KHS Chamber Choir, and they performed for the board, and oh my God, it was amazing. The talent of the robotics and the band and the athletes and these students. Killingly has got some of the brightest kids like you've ever seen, and the sweetest, and they're just amazing. So shout out to Mr. Largent and really everybody in KPS. They're just amazing. These kids are going to have a bright future. They instituted, well, not so bright here. They instituted a new, no, I don't mean they're not bright. I mean, this is sad. They instituted a new policy. They did the second reading. They voted it in unanimously concerning the administering of medication to students in a potential opioid overdose. That's policy number 5141.213 if anyone wants to look at it, but it can potentially save a life. They revised policy number 6159. That's instruction on individualized, so IEPs and special ed. That vote was voted in unanimously. It was just some revisions. And also policy number 9132, there was a revision on that, and that involves steering committees. I can't read my writing. And they adopted the new calendar year for BOA meetings for 2024. And then I attended a training, as some of us did, for it was presented through NECOG, but it was the Yukon Clear Land Use Academy, and it was for planning and zoning, and it went over like requirements, restrictions, It was so good, and I recommend, when we're sitting in these seats, we might not be planning and zoning experts or rec or whatever, but it was a very concise training, and it gives you a broad view of the laws around planning and zoning, and kind of the history, too, of how they've come up with the state of Connecticut where they are. So I recommend, if they do any more, I think they're going to, it's a great, great training, and it was what, like 2 hours? I think it was, and the woman, the instructor, she was so funny. She was so good, but I mean, she was funny too. She kept it moving. And DDH, as we already discussed, they voted not to renew the director. I also joined the finance committee. Joined is a operative word. But they're looking at the budget for this year, and they're coming in very conservative. So their tentative per capita increase is $1. So I believe they got the message. I believe the changes that are they're putting through are going to improve the department. So, and that's all I have, except I want to invite everyone this weekend. As most of you know, we will be laying wreaths at Holy Cross Westfield Cemetery for Wreaths Across America through all of our efforts, and I want to thank the town and the Elks and all of the other organizations, and I know I'll forget somebody, so I'm not going to go through the list. We were able to sponsor 1,692 wreaths. So please come down and join us. And Michelle will be singing the national anthem for us. If you have not heard her voice, you have to. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barclay.
Planning and zoning meeting on November 20th. The property on 2 Weeks Lane, the hearing for the subdivision is continued. They don't want to have non-conforming zoning. Special permit for Hartford Pike was approved, and they're still waiting for approval from, with the conditions that there's approval from the Connecticut DOT. There was a application for a which they turned into a special permit for the Borough of Danielson. It was approved for a redemption center. So you can just bring your bottles and all of them, and they'll redeem them there. When Warregan Road, the old Benny's building, it went from general commercial, light industrial back to general commercial. The approval will take place on December 18th at 12:01 a.m. 18 Ware Road, 21 Pineville Road, special permit for a development. Hearing is continued on December 18th. Zone text change for updating and revision of section for a business park was approved. It will take effect on December 18th at 12:01. Subdivision application for 325 Snake Meadow Road is approved. There were some neighbors that came to the hearing. There was a sign posted for a hearing, although there was no public hearing, so Anne Marie had to take them out. They were pretty angry because they had waited like 3 hours. And for new business, they would like to have a, go over what open space is for developments. And that was it for planning and zoning. And from the Housing Authority, the director's report, they adopted the town's way of calculating insurance. They're looking for a small cities grant to $4 to $5 million to do some work on Birchwood Terrace. The last renovations were done in 1982. So they're looking for new kitchens, bathrooms, and siding. They're awaiting for the elevator work to be done. They did spend nearly $11,000. And they're having problems again with their food service. So they're not happy with that.
If I
And
may,
that's it.
before you completely move on, I just want to let everyone know that CCM does a newly elected official training. That's going to be happening on January 6th. It's a Saturday. I will be emailing you the link to that training. So, and, you know, I know, you know, there's a lot of you that are not newly elected. They cover a lot within those. So if any of you, you know, I do recommend anybody that wants to go, even as a repeat, to go out to it. It does cover a lot of information. So I will get that link out to anyone. If anyone, you know, has any difficulty with the link and wants to register, I can always get you registered as well. So, but that will be going out to your email. So keep an eye out for it if you're interested in it. It's a Saturday and it's pretty much an all day. I think a couple of you did attend it at one point in time. It's an all day event, and sometimes I think the afternoon sessions, your head is a little full by the time you get there. So sometimes repeating those are beneficial, just because I think there's just so much that comes from that. But I'll try and get that, make sure you get that link out. And if you do register for it, typically once you're registered for any of the CCM events, they usually email you upcoming training events as well too. So a lot of the times you'll still get notifications, but I'll get that out to everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Krandelsky.
The Sewer Authority had a public hearing on the connection rates. There was only one person made a comment. There was really no opposition. The rate went from $700 to $3,000 for residential and $3,500 to industrial.
Went from 700.
And nobody complained, but everybody's calling about their
and
evaluation.
It also went, the residential went to $3,000 per unit.
Well, I think it was always that way.
No, it went to per unit.
Well, they.
Just so you, just
So,
for clarification.
everybody who talked to me who was complaining and no one showed up. But the only, well, John was the one that made some comment, but it was positive.
It's insane.
For anybody to say, you're crazy, we didn't get that. We had some.
And you
John
had something, Ms.
some
Wakefield?
positive comments about it. That's it.
Patty reminded me of something. I actually had a conversation with Mr. Lackner, the athletic director, at the high school, because you were talking about, you know, the choir and that. We had 5 fall teams make it into the state playoffs. They didn't make it past the first round, but so they were one of the top 8 teams in their sport. So there were 5 teams from Killingley that made it to enter into the state title rounds, so.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is 17, executive session. We have nothing for executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Mr. Kurtula. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
It's the C.
Aye. Opposed?
It's the C.
Abstentions? Meeting is adjourned.
You gotta battle it.
So what do you think? It wasn't too bad. No.